21.2 Ergogenic aids. Ergogenic aids are either a substance or a technique used to enhance sporting performance. They are used by millions of athletes across the world to aid their physical ability when performing. There are 5 different types of ergogenic aid, which are physiological, psychological, nutritional, pharmacological, and mechanical. Ergogenic aids can be used in a positive way to increase sporting performance. For instance, swimmers use racing jammers made from carbon fibre because they compress the muscles, keep them warm, and reduce lactate production. This enables the swimmer to swim faster. In addition to this physiological aid, they also provide a psychological aid. When a competitive swimmer puts on their carbon fibre jammers, they feel ready to race and have a higher expectation of how fast they can go. Many ergogenic aids have been banned because they enhance performance too much and provide an unfair advantage. For instance, Lance Armstrong won the Tour de France 7 times because he was cheating by using EPO to give him better endurance than his competitors. He was getting a physiological advantage because he had an increased oxygen supply to his muscles, which enabled him to perform better in competition and in training, and to recover faster. He also had a psychological advantage because he knew that he had a massive advantage over everybody else racing. The reason why Britain has done so well in the recent Olympics is because it has spent a lot of money employing sports scientists who have made the most of legal ergogenic aids. Russia have made the most of illegal ergogenic aids, and many of their athletes have now been banned. Some British athletes may be using illegal ergogenic aids. Sir Bradley Wiggins is suspected of using a performance-enhancing steroid at major competitions. The problem with ergogenic aids is where do you draw the line between what's fair and an unfair advantage? Poor countries can't use ergogenic aids, so are they at a bigger disadvantage? Key organisations. The IOC stands for International Olympic Committee. It comes up with the anti-doping rules, but it delegates implementing doping controls to WADA and who act under the IOC's authority. WADA stands for the World Anti-Doping Agency. It is run by representatives from the Olympic movement and governments that aim to get rid of doping in all sports. They conduct scientific research in order to test for doping. They are in charge of anti-doping testing throughout the world. They decide where to draw the line between what's legal and what's illegal. They work with the police, governments and anti-doping organisations to stop athletes cheating and to prevent cheating in the future. UK Sport has a section called UCAD, which educates British teams about anti-doping to make sure they understand the rules. They have a programme called 100% Me, and the aim is to minimise the risk of mistakes and to prevent doping from happening. There are 5 different types of ergogenic aid. The first is physiological. Physiological is to do with how the body works. Some examples of physiological aids include altitude training, EPO, blood doping, sports massage, and human growth hormone. Psychological ergogenic aids is to do with the way thoughts and feelings can affect performance. For example, some examples would be relaxation, cheering, imagery, music, and meditation. All of these can be used to either calm down or pump up an athlete before their performance, depending on what they need. Nutritional aids refer to a substance you eat. For example, beetroot juice, creatine, caffeine, and bicarbonate soda all affect performance. Pharmacological aids are drugs which aid performance, which include steroids, amphetamines, caffeine, and beta blockers. Any physical object that affects performance is a mechanical aid. For example, aqua training, computer analysis, weights, treadmills, hypoxic tents, and heart rate monitors all affect performance. EPO is a physiological ergogenic aid. EPO is a hormone which is naturally made and stored in the kidneys. Its job is to stimulate the production of red blood cells which carry oxygen. By taking extra EPO, an athlete can increase their red blood cell count, which will provide more oxygen for the working muscles, so an athlete can work harder for a longer period of time. EPO can be artificially produced and injected into an athlete in order to enhance their aerobic performance. This is an example of a physiological aid. It is a very illegal substance, but it was difficult to detect because EPO is a hormone that naturally occurs in the body. Scientists have developed a urine test that can tell if EPO is natural or synthetic. Endurance athletes take this substance to give themselves an advantage for extreme long distance events such as the Tour de France. Lance Armstrong, who won the Tour de France 7 times because he was found to be cheating using EPO, it could be used by a heptathlete for when they do the 800 meters because they would have more oxygen for their working muscles, so it would enable them to run faster for longer. The positive effects of using EPO is that it provides more oxygen for the working muscles and it aids recovery time. A negative effect is that it can make the blood too thick, and this can cause stroke and heart attack. Also, the body can develop antibodies which work against EPO and can cause anemia. Altitude training is used by athletes to increase their red blood cell count. It is mainly used by elite athletes, and they train at high altitude in order to force their body to create more natural EPO to make more red blood cells in order to cope with the difficulty of diffusing oxygen at high altitude where there isn't as much in the air. This is an example of a mechanical ergogenic aid because you are using a mountain or an altitude tent to increase performance. Elite athletes might go and live at high altitude, such as Mo Farah went to live at altitude in Kenya before the 2014 London Marathon. If elite athletes don't want to live at high altitude, they can live in tents which simulate high altitude. For instance, Michael Phelps was told by his coach to spend as much time as he could in his high altitude tent. The main benefit of high altitude training is that it's a legal ergogenic aid. It also improves recovery time, aerobic endurance, and respiratory functions. The main disadvantage is that it's only available to the most elite athletes because it is very expensive. Also, it can weaken the immunity and cause dehydration. Greater production of EPO thickens the blood, and this can lead to a stroke or heart attack. The positive effects of altitude training wear off, so the athlete needs to keep on doing it. Another negative is that the athlete could react badly to the altitude training and get altitude sickness. In heptathlon, this physiological ergogenic aid would be useful for the 800 meters because it would enable an athlete to run for longer because they have an increase in red blood cells and they carry more oxygen, which would help them to run faster for longer. I don't think altitude training is fair because it's not available to all athletes, and so the ones who can use it have an unfair advantage. Music is a psychological ergogenic aid. It is used by athletes to pump them up or either calm them down before their performance. Music has no direct physiological effect on the body, but it might make the athlete feel better and possibly perform better. Music is used by elite and non-elite athletes to aid their performance. It can be used in heptathlon for basically any of the 6 events. If you don't feel as confident before a certain event, such as the shot put, then you could listen to music to feel more prepared or relaxed. Music can be used to make you feel calm if you are nervous or to stimulate you to make you feel determined to perform your best. Music can be listened to by anyone, so it's widely available. The main benefit of listening to music is that it's cheap and a good way to prepare for any event. The way you prepare for events psychologically can have a significant impact on performance. The disadvantage of using music as an ergogenic aid is that the quality of music might be different depending on what type of headphones the athlete has. Also, you might listen to the wrong type of music and get too excited before the race, and then you might go out too quickly and then die towards the end as a result. Steroids are a pharmacological ergogenic aid. Steroids act in a similar way to the hormone testosterone that is naturally produced in the body. Steroids' main function is to stimulate muscle growth, improve endurance, and aid recovery time. It is used by mainly sprint or power athletes such as bodybuilders and sprinters, and it has been used in cycling. Steroids could be used in the heptathlon for any of the events, but it would be particularly useful for javelin, shot put, long jump, and high jump, which require lots of power. Steroids are not particularly expensive, but they are illegal, which makes getting them fairly difficult. The positive effects of using steroids are that they increase muscle mass and strength and improve endurance and aid recovery. The negative effects of using steroids are that they can damage veins, make you become more aggressive, make you experience mood swings, erectile dysfunction, and you can also get high blood pressure, stroke, liver failure, and heart attack. They can also ruin your career. Ben Johnson tested positive for the anabolic steroid stanozolol 3 days after winning the 1988 Olympic gold medal for the 100-meter sprint when he had broken the world record. Caffeine is a nutritional ergogenic aid. Caffeine is a central nervous system stimulant and a mild diuretic. It is found in things like coffee, tea, energy drinks, and chocolate. It is used to increase mental alertness. Many sprinters use caffeine to make them alert before a race, and your reaction time's faster so you can get a good start. It would be used in heptathlon for power events such as shot put, javelin, 100-meter hurdles, and the 200-meter sprint. Caffeine is widely available and it's very cheap to buy, so anyone can use it. The positive effects of using this aid is that it can improve alertness and mood and decrease fatigue. However, if you regularly use caffeine and stop using it, then you can get withdrawal symptoms. Caffeine used to be illegal in 2004, but then it became a legal substance because it's difficult to ban something that's so widely available and consumed as part of an everyday average diet. Sports clothing is a mechanical ergogenic aid. Clothing has been developed to help athletes compete better. For instance, athletes warm up before a race, but there's often a gap between the warm up and the actual race. Loughborough University developed heated trousers that can be worn to keep the muscles warm between the warm up and the race. This has helped to improve the performance of GB Olympic team. Warming materials would be particularly useful to heptathletes because they have to perform at their best in 6 events, so they need to keep their muscles warm. The research into creating heated trousers and other ergogenic sportswear has been very expensive. Britain has done very well at this research because of the National Lottery, which has funded it. The clothes themselves are not ridiculously expensive, and they are relatively easy to buy. The really good thing about clothing as an ergogenic aid is that there are not any nasty side effects, and it doesn't cause any harm to the athlete. The bad thing is that it gives an advantage to wealthy countries and makes it more difficult for poor countries to do well because they don't have so much money for research. It's totally legal to use the clothing to aid performance. Overall, I think clothing as an ergogenic aid is a good thing because it can help everybody's sporting performance. For instance, since I found out about heated clothing, I make sure that I'm very warm before I race by wearing warm clothing.